Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to explore with you the secrets and mechanisms of Jewish survival, security, prosperity, and leadership. Our history tells us that in every generation, someone came upon us to destroy us. And nonetheless, we're still here. This must beg the question of why and how. So that question of Jewish immortality is not a new one. And the beginning of an answer can be found in the work of Charles Darwin, who focused on the idea of adaptability. Many of us tend to associate adaptability with moving forward with force and confidence, embracing change and innovation. But in fact, adaptability is as much about the new as it is about the old. It is as much about embracing new customs as it is about clinging to old traditions. It is as much about flexibility as it is about rigidity, flexigidity, which is the hybrid that communities create in order to ensure their survival, security, prosperity, and leadership. And what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is to take you through a journey of sense-making into the world of Jewish flexigidity. Consider a skyscraper. Concrete gives it rigidity. Steel allows for its flexibility. Its flexigidity allows it to withstand the movement of the earth, the force of the wind, and dramatic changes in temperature. Now use this metaphor to think about the Jewish people. We've been rigidly loyal to Zion, to the land of Israel, but we have lived in many diasporas. We've been rigidly committed to the Hebrew language, but we mastered the lingua francas of the places of our residence. Our laws, our written laws, are rigidly untouchable, but the Talmudic process allows for progress and flexibility in our communities. Now think about matrilineal descent. It rigidly establishes that the child of a Jewish mother is a Jew, irrespective of the identity of the father, the circumstances of the conception, or of ideology. But conversions allow for flexibility in determining the membership of our communities. And the law of patrilineal descent has been recently intensely debated. Let's take a look at our communities. Every Jewish community has a list of institutions that it must have in order to be a legitimate member in the World Wide Web of the Jewish people. I'm talking about schools, mikvehs, committees, modern-day version of which is, of course, federation. Now look at the Jewish people. Mind-boggling variety among our communities. Finally, let's look at the mission of the Jewish people. We have 4 stories that determine our past, present, future, and destiny. The story of peoplehood views us as a family and a tribe bound together. The story of nationhood speaks about a group of people that came from a specific place on the face of this earth, was exiled from it, preserved uninterrupted loyalty to and presence in that place, and given the opportunity in the 19th century, we returned. There's a third story, the story of faith. It is about a covenant that exists between God and our community as a whole, as well as with each and every individual among us. And finally, there is the story of being a light unto the nations, of a group of people that has a mission towards humanity. Now, each of these stories has a rigid core, values, priorities, patterns of conduct, traditions that are associated to it. But together they create a spectrum of opportunities for meaningful engagement with and membership in the Jewish people. So if these are the pillars of Jewish flexigidity, the next question must be, what are the forces that drive change and adaptation? And the answer is that these forces stem from inherent conflicts and tensions that are structured into our society, never to be resolved. In any given moment in time, we have a few centers of leadership that compete for the understanding of the challenges that we face and the appropriate responses. Talking about Babylon and Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and New York. Look at the tensions between insulation and openness, between validation of wealth creation and the obligation to share wealth. But the most powerful tension that drives adaptation in our community is the tension between unity and the forces that pull us together and the incentives for adversity that drive us apart. So a useful metaphor for thinking about the Jewish people is the metaphor of an ecosystem. Some factions in our ecosystem move forward with confidence. They embrace innovation, experimenting with new ideas. Meanwhile, conservative factions say no, no, no to every innovation. But every once in a while, one of these innovations proves to sustain the security and the prosperity of our communities without compromising its identity. And then you would see even the most conservative forces grudgingly gravitating in that direction, allowing for our collective progress. So if you think about ourselves as an ecosystem, both conservatives and progressives are essential for our ability to optimize the pace of adaptation. Some of us may view the Lubavitcher Rebbe as an ultra-conservative. But in fact, 250 years ago, his forefathers were the reformers of their time. So the next question is, what is the state of Jewish flexigidity? How are we doing? And there are many good reasons to feel very good about ourselves. We have never been more powerful due to the combined economic, political, and military influence of the State of Israel and of the Jewish community in North America. But network theory actually indicates that we have a reason to worry, precisely because of our concentration in two economic, political, and cultural baskets. Furthermore, when you look at the trends in Israeli society, we see a very strong move in the direction of rigidity. And when we look at the trends in the Jewish community in North America, we see a move in the other direction, in the direction of flexibility, ignorance of Hebrew, disengagement from Israel, distancing for the community institutions. So the paradox of our time is that while we may have never been more powerful, we may have rarely been as vulnerable. And if you share this diagnostics, then you must agree that revitalizing Jewish flexigidity may be the most significant leadership challenge of our time. Now, Ron Chefetz defines leadership as activities that we take in order to promote the adaptation that is essential for our community in order to ensure its prosperity. This is a definition that invokes two very important insights. First is that leadership is not necessarily about charisma. It's about action that can come from any place in our society. The second insight is that leadership requires thoughtful action, beginning with diagnostics of the situation, envisioning a reality, designing a strategy, acting upon it, debriefing our lessons, and going through this process over and over again. Some of you may expect me to give you a to-do list, action items, manuals. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Because each and every one of you is in a different place in Jewish society, with a different perspective, and therefore with a different set of leadership tools available to you. What I can do today is share with you three insights. The first is that the major challenge in the North American Jewish community is to revitalize our Jewish institutions, the education system, and the structures that support our collective needs. In Israel, we must reframe the way we see Jewish diaspora. Zionism negated the diaspora and aspired to see it disappearing. This would be devastating for Jewish flexigidity. And therefore, the outlook right now must be that a vibrant diaspora is actually a Zionist imperative. And therefore, the State of Israel and the government of Israel must actively engage in supporting Jewish communities around the world. The third insight is that the North American Jewish community and the State of Israel must work together to strengthen Jewish communities in other places around the world, because these communities have extraordinary importance for the resilience of the World Wide Web of the Jewish people. So, if Twain's question was about Jewish immortality, and if the answer is captured in the concept of flexigidity, then our collective challenge is to add our layer to Jewish flexigidity that will help ensure that one of the few things that we can say about humanity with confidence 500 years down the road is that there will be Jews lighting Shabbat candles on Friday night. Thank you very much.